Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of our witnesses for your testimony. Obviously, very powerful testimony about the vulnerability of homeowners at this time. And if I may just offer one comment or observation about the testimony of all of our witnesses, it just speaks to the very important need for us to avoid any future shutdowns of the economy. Of course, we need to practice hygiene and mask wearing and all of the things to prevent the spread of the virus. But particularly for minority borrowers, based on the testimony that so many have offered here today, it just speaks to the importance of getting people back to work so that they can provide for their families and meet those payment obligations. Let me start with a question for Dr. DeMarco about the non-federally backed mortgages, and I think your testimony was that for those non-government backed mortgages, those mortgages actually those borrowers are actually experiencing a higher forbearance rate than federally backed mortgages. Dr. DeMarco, what does that tell you about the marketplace and how the marketplace is responding without the HEROES Act?
I think it's telling us a couple things. I think it's telling us that what was in the CARES Act, the forbearance provisions in the CARES Act that have been implemented for federally backed mortgages, is a sound approach to dealing with this kind of situation, and that servicers that are not required under the CARES Act to provide this support are still utilizing those same tools to assist their customers in non-federally backed mortgages. So I think that servicers recognize in this situation that payment forbearance is an appropriate response to assist their borrowers. And in fact, they are doing that whether required by the CARES Act or not. And so this is really developed as a best practice. It is being utilized by servicers of non-federally backed mortgages very effectively, and as you noted, and as I noted, at a greater rate than in fact we see in the GSE loan.
The HEROES Act, which, as you know, passed without any Republican support, contains some new parameters around options for homeowners experiencing difficulties. But apparently, the authors of the HEROES Act believe that instituting mandatory automatic forbearance for all borrowers and limiting loan modification options would benefit borrowers. Dr. DeMarco, how would these proposed sections of the HEROES Act impact a servicer's ability to work with their customer? And would they actually help or hurt American families trying to stay in their homes? And in the context of answering that question, could you talk about the importance of communication between servicers and borrowers?
All right, well, that's actually where I was going to start. I think that the idea, I understand the intention behind wanting to create an automatic forbearance opportunity for borrowers, but there's actually, I suggest, something more important here that actually comes out of the work that Congress did in the Dodd-Frank Act and then has been implemented since by the CFPB, but it was also part of the development servicer practice as a result of the Great Recession. That is the importance of timely communication between a servicer and their customer if the customer is having problems paying their mortgage. So we don't want to wait 60 days and say, oh, well, we haven't had a check come in, we'll put them on forbearance. Servicers have to be, should be, and want to be in contact with their customer before you get to 60 days and want to understand what is the customer's situation so that they can, in a timely way, deliver an appropriate support or opportunity to help get that homeowner back on their feet. So, for example, the homeowner may have missed 2 months of payment for reasons having nothing to do with an economic disruption due to the pandemic, but for some other reason. And so the servicer wants to get in touch with that homeowner, find that reason, and get to solving that homeowner's particular problem. So that's why we would suggest that the idea of making sure the servicer is actually staying in contact with their customer and the customer staying in contact with the servicer is going to yield a better outcome for the very situations that we're going to see here.
My time is almost expired, but I think it's important to recognize that different homeowners face different difficulties, and a one-size-fits-all may not be better. If we can get folks into repayment quicker, we should do that. And finally, no matter what we did in the CARES Act or how much forbearance requirements or forbearance is allowed in these cases. Nothing can replace getting people back to work and getting kids back in school so people can take care of their mortgage obligations. So thanks so much, and I yield back.